What's going on, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Crack a Pack series. Today we are opening up a pack of the original Conspiracy set. This was a draft focus set, which is going to make it really fun to go through and hopefully figure out what our pack one pick one will be. I actually really enjoyed this set as well. I felt it was a bit underrated, as with the second Conspiracy, though I think they're kind of going up in price just a little bit now, so we'll see what we get. But our first card here is Brago's Representative. It's a 1/4 for 2 and a white, and while voting, you get an additional vote. So voting is a pretty big part of this set. There's a lot of things that ask you to vote, ask other players to vote. Having an extra vote in that actually makes a really big difference in this set. If you pick some cards that are going to be like, hey, vote for this, you'll want a card like this just to kind of support that kind of card. My opinion on that, though, is that you'd rather have the big voting card first and then pick these up. Otherwise, they're not really going to be the best. That being said, your opponents may be playing that, and you can get away with using this against them as well. So I do like it, but I'd rather have the big payoff cards first. Reckless Scholar is a 2/1 for 2 and a blue, and you can tap it, and target player draws a card, then discards a card. This is just a really solid looter. It's a perfectly good card. I would pick this over the Representative for sure, but probably not a big first pick. It's just a really solid card for really any deck, any blue deck at the very least. Pillarfield Ox is a 2/4 vanilla creature for 3 and a white. This is very underwhelming. I really hate this card. I don't like cards like this. They're just bad, and I get why like sets like this need bad cards sometimes. That's just how it is. So you need to not always get the payoff and that kind of thing, but the art's beautiful, but that's about it, so not a huge fan of that. Skitter of Lizards is a 1/1 for 1 red. It does have multi-kicker, so you can pay 1 and a red as many times as you would like as you cast this spell. It does have haste, and then it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for every time it was kicked. This is a very above average 1-drop for this set. It's very solid, very aggressive. I love that it has haste, and then you can multi-kick it. So late game it has a little bit more relevance than an average 1-drop would, which I really like. Honestly, I like this, though the Scholar is a little bit more my playstyle. I like the Lizard better than that. It's just a really solid card. Power of Fire is an enchant creature for 1 and a red, and the equipped creature has tap it. This creature deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Normally, I'm not a very large fan of enchant creatures just because they open yourself up to 2-for-1s, as I've talked about before. This helps a little bit because it's not making the creature, it's not forcing the creature to attack. And so it's not opening it up to a less than desirable block or something like that. But it is still that same like 2/4. If they just kill it, then you lose 2 cards versus 1. I do like the pinging effect. I think that's really useful just in general. You can pick off a lot of low ground stuff, which is great. And then if you need to, just kind of nug the player. It gets you out of board stall positions, things like that. A card like this in a red deck, I maybe want one of, just for those kind of corner cases a little bit, but in general, I'm not super excited about it. Howlin Wolf is a 2/2 for 2 and 2 green. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for up to 3 cards named Howlin Wolf, reveal them, and put them into your hand. If you do, shuffle your library. These cards like these that pull out other cards of the same name or something like those are pretty good. I like stuff like that because it always makes sure that you have plays. And in limited, that's really important. Generally speaking, the more plays you have, the more options you have, the better off you're going to be when it comes to winning the game, which is great. Cards like this, though, are also notoriously a little bit tricky in limited because what if you only get one of them? What if you only open one of them? And so, yes, it's a common. It's going to be likely that you'll probably see 1 or 2 more. You may not get the full play set by any means, but it's pretty likely you'll see some. I'm not a huge fan of taking this early, though. If you're going to take it, I would say you probably should take it early, but I don't think it's worth it that early. Typhoid Rats, a 1/1 for 1 black with Death Touch. This is actually a really solid 1-drop. Any early Death Touchers are going to be great because they deal with anything, which is great. They can deal with the big fatties that most creatures just get run over by. So I really like a card like this. I still like the Lizard, I think, a little bit more. Just because there's a little bit more upside that it can actually swing in, do some damage really easily. The Rat's not really going to be dealing much damage, but it's a very defensive play, so I do like these. Charging Rhino is a 4/4 for 3 and 2 green, and it can't be blocked by more than one creature. So basically it just makes it so it's going to be really, really difficult to kill via blocking, unless they just have a stronger creature, which in that case you're not going to attack anyway. So I like this. It encourages aggression. It's a little bit, I mean, it's a 4/4 for 5, which isn't great, but it is probably going to stick around a little bit more than your average 4/4 would. And so I do like that. Hopefully it's going to get in for some damage. I still like the Lizards more, to be honest. It just seems like a better pick to me. That being said, this is not a bad card either. Tragic Slip, an instant for 1 black. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. But this also has morbid, and that creature gets -13/-13 until end of turn. Instead, if a creature died this turn. So I really like this card. This is a really solid removal spell. The 1/1 actually hits a surprising amount of stuff in this set, I would say. But that -13/-13 is huge. So honestly, so far, I feel like this is definitely the pick. It's just solid removal, very, very efficient, and instant speed, which is great. So you can time it whenever something else dies. So it's flexible, and it deals a ton of damage to a creature. Valor Made Real is an instant for 1 white. Target creature can block any number of creatures this turn. I don't really like a card like this. It's very defensive. It's kind of a combat trick, but it doesn't really... it just doesn't seem like it does enough. There are going to be instances, obviously, where this is going to just do a ton of stuff, which is great. Maybe you can clear a board that way or something, but like it seems really corner casey to me. Not a huge fan of a card like this. Our first uncommon is Spontaneous Combustion, so it's an instant for 1, a black, and a red. As an additional cost to cast it, sacrifice a creature, and then it deals 3 damage to each creature. So it's actually pretty big. I kind of like this card. Generally speaking, I don't like picking gold cards early just because I'd rather leave myself open as much as possible. But this is really, really powerful. It is a sweeper. It's going to deal with a lot of stuff in this set, which I like quite a bit. Yes, you have to sacrifice a creature, but you can sacrifice a creature that's going to die anyway, and then it doesn't matter. So I actually kind of like this. I think right now that might be the pick. Wakestone Gargoyle is a 3/4 for 3 and a white. It does have Defender and Flying. And then you can pay 1 and a white, and creatures you control with Defender can attack this turn as though they did not have Defender. So this is a really interesting card. A 3/4 for 4 with Flying is good. A 3/4 for 4 with Flying and Defender, not so good. It's not bad by any means, because it is going to be able to block for days, which is great. And then it does give you the option to attack with it. And what I do like about this is it's not just this, it's any creature with Defender that you control. So it does affect other cards with Defender. So say you have 2 of these on the board, you really only have to activate 1 to be able to attack with both. So I do kind of like that. I feel like there's a good bit of upside there. I'm going to keep it in this pile for now. Squirrel Nest, I love this card. So 1 and 2 green for an enchant land. The land has tap and put a 1/1 green squirrel creature token onto the battlefield. This is a really fun card. The squirrel tribal deck kind of thing is always fun, but I will say this has been a little underwhelming in Conspiracy when I was drafting with it. It just didn't seem like it did that much. It's cool to be able to just spit out squirrel tokens all the time, but eventually they just get outpowered. So kind of not worth it. You also do always have to leave up that land, which can be a good or bad thing depending on where you're at, but generally speaking, a little underwhelming in this format. And then our rare is Altar of Dementia. So it's an artifact for 2 mana, sacrifice a creature. Target player puts a number of cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power from the top of his or her library into his or her graveyard. I weirdly kind of like this card. I know it sounds kind of strange, but for 2 mana, you can get it down early, which means it's not going to be like at the most impactful time of the game. So it's not like a turn 4 or turn 5 where you're hoping to play a big bomb or anything like that. Instead, on turn 2, it's early enough that if you take a hit from it, it's not going to be a huge deal. And what this does is it kind of favors blocks like crazy for you, because all you have to do is block a creature, sacrifice the creature that you're blocking with, and then all of a sudden you're milling tons and tons of cards. I kind of like that. I feel like that's a little bit of like a nitpicky situation though, where it's like it's not really going to happen that way every time. Personally, I feel like I would try that over these, only because I didn't get the opportunity to play with this. I'm not saying that this is the best card out of this pack by any means for a draft format, but I would try it. I think this is one of those cards where I'm like, I don't know, so I feel like I should try it. So I might be incorrect on that. We also have immediate action. This is a conspiracy card. These are unique to this set. This does have hidden agenda, so you start the game with this in your command zone face down, and secretly you will name a card. Generally speaking, you'll just write it down. And then you may turn this conspiracy face up anytime and reveal the chosen name. So creatures you control with the chosen name have haste. These conspiracies are really, really powerful if you can get a lot of them to do the right things. Some of them are better than others, obviously. This is just a common, but it is pretty good. Giving your creatures haste is going to give you some big upside on the attacking end, which is always a good thing. So I do like a card like this, not more than the Altar or some of the other cards that we had. So for me, again, this may be very incorrect, but Altar of Dementia is probably what I would pick just to give it a shot. Again, not necessarily the best card for a draft deck. I just want to see. So that's my opinion. Feel free to let me know in the comment section below if you disagree or if you feel there's another card that would have been better. But with that, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next Crack a Pack episode.